Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test. Test, 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 test.
Yeah, to speak, yeah. We start in 5 minutes. Okay, so we wait. So, welcome everybody. Thanks a lot for coming here. First of all, thanks a lot for Sarah Mathieu for hosting us here today. And I want to welcome you in the name of the EEB, Friends of the Earth Europe, and the Heinrich Böll Foundation. My name is Johanna Süder, and I'm heading the International Environmental Policy Division at the Heinrich Böll Foundation. And EEB, Friends of the Earth, and Heinrich Böll Foundation are all part of a bigger EU coalition, the EU Raw Materials Coalition. And we have closely followed in the past year the EU Critical Raw Materials Act, which was one of the files, I think it was probably one of the quickest files in the legislative process in the past years. It was rushed through the parliament. And the main aim was to get more independent from China in raw material supply. It aims for more mining within the EU, more recycling, more value creation, and yeah, mainly to get more independent. And the main strategies are strategic partnership and strategic projects. And there also has been signed the MOUs with Serbia on a strategic partnership. And we suspect one mining project we have heard quite a lot about recently, one plant mining project, the project from Rio Tinto, that it might also be applied for a strategic project. In this context, we are quite afraid that there are very few standards also put to strategic projects within the EU from the Critical Raw Materials Act. And we also know that in Bosnia, we have seen an upraise on interest in the raw materials from Bosnia. So that's what we are doing today, to look more closely into Bosnia and Serbia. And we have seen that, yeah, deals also, strategic partnerships have been signed with countries where there's no free and fair elections, where clearly where our European values have been violated, like, for example, in the case in Serbia. And yeah, we have normally in talking about raw materials extraction, we talk a lot about Latin America, we talk a lot about Africa, etc., but we don't talk much about West Balkans. And but just in the past month, we have heard a lot in Serbia, and there's huge protests that have re-emerged. And after there was this MOU signed between the EU and Serbia. And since that, the human rights situation in the country has drastically worsened, and we want to go more deeper into this. I'm very glad that Sarah Mathieu, you're hosting us today, and thanks a lot for you making your way for the speakers today to come here to Brussels from Bosnia and Serbia and to give your testimonies and your expertise on the cases. But before handing over to you and introducing you more into detail, I would like to give the word to you, Sarah Mathieu.
Yeah, thanks a lot. A very warm welcome, of course, also from my side in the European Parliament. And I do want to thank the EEB, the Heinrich Böll Foundation, of course, and Friends of the Earth for organizing it. Well, when Diego here approached us with the question to host, I immediately said yes, because, well, we have seen, of course, those reports in the media about the protests in Serbia over the summer and the death threats to Alexander Matkovic, here, of course, also with us today. And I think it's really seriously a red flag, especially in the context of the Memorandum of Understanding that was signed between the EU and Serbia earlier in July. So from where I'm standing, I think it's really highly problematic that there's no real scrutiny from the Parliament over those memorandums and their roadmaps. For instance, as far as I know, the roadmaps of the MOUs with Kazakhstan and Namibia are not publicly available, but, well, it's also a political problem. Well, let's make a small detour to the Memorandum of Understanding between the EU and Rwanda. We all, well, know, I would say, that the Rwandan regime has destabilized, has invaded the DRC for many decades and did again, of course, last year. And they are also really known to smuggle vast amounts of resources from the DRC. So, well, we even have reports, for instance, by Global Witness that show that 90% of the Rwandan mineral exports actually come from illegal sources. And well, the EU ironically signed the MOU exactly at the time where the Rwandan troops were laying siege on Goma, depriving hundreds of thousands of people of humanitarian aid. And I would say that that is one of those examples that we have seen that would raise really some pretty hard questions, like what kind of message are we actually sending out to communities and to countries around the world coming from Europe? Would that actually lead this kind of MOUs to mutual beneficial partnerships? Will that actually increase our credibility as an EU? And how do we actually square all of this with our recently adopted law, for instance, on due diligence? How do we square that with the Global Gateways principle when it comes to upholding those democratical values of high standards, of good governance, and on a security focus? So, well, I've raised those questions with the Commission officials whenever I've had the chance in this Parliament. Not with a great result, I have to add. It doesn't seem like, especially the people within DG Trade, for instance, are really aware that there is actually an issue. And well, when we see the media reports now on the lithium mine in Serbia, I think that we will need to do the same thing, because it really seems like the Serbian government, with the support of the EU, is actually imposing the Rio Tinto lithium mine on the local population. And I don't think that that is a winning strategy. And well, we've discussed a lot about that, and it was mentioned, of course, during the negotiations on the CRM Act. And well, the question whether a so-called strategic project should actually get priority over nature conservation or the opinion of local communities. Well, we raised this point, and it was very clear that on the right side of this parliament, they wanted that to be automatically the case. We, of course, didn't. We thought it was important to protect nature conservation and those local communities. Because, of course, I mean, if you don't, it really opens up the door for potential abuse without any recourse to remediation. And really also because it doesn't work, because what you actually create is massive protests, and that won't help anyone. That even won't help those that actually want these projects to succeed as soon as possible. So, well, then the only alternative for them to succeed is then state repression, is then intimidation. And then, of course, this is not only a question anymore about environmental law, but also a question of democracy, also a question of rule of law. And I mean, next to that, I would say that it's actually deadly also for the support that we need for the ecological transition to take these kind of short-sighted decisions. Because, well, we do have to acknowledge, of course, that we will need some of those minerals, but I think it's important that we say that we don't get them at any costs. So maybe for now, to finish with a few things we should do before we dive into it. I think that the CRM Act is what it is. We've negotiated, we got some wins, we got some losses, but we know that there will be new mines when it comes to critical minerals. I think that the minimum that we have to do is actually ensure that those environmental standards are actually aligned with the best practices that there are globally to really avoid as much damage as we can. And well, that means that we still have some work to do because, well, for instance, when it comes to European law, the rules for mining waste, for instance, they haven't been updated since 2006. They are really far behind the global best practices, like the Global Safety First guidelines. So for me, this is one of the things that the Commission should really look into as a big priority. I think we also need to revise our external strategies to make sure that we actually truly make mutually beneficial partnerships with respect for free, prior and informed consent, and of course with clear benefits for local communities. We shouldn't just be using the cover of the Global Gateway to deliver 80 billion euros of development aid to really mainly export-oriented infrastructure projects, but really use that money to actually offer added value activities in the partner countries, both on environmental protection and, of course, on worker protection and human rights as well. And then, well, we need to get serious about sustainable resource use. We've allowed car companies to pursue short-term gains by betting on very big SUVs. For instance, I think that all of us are really following the debate on car manufacturing right now in Europe. Well, I remember this study in Belgium showing that we can actually reduce CRM demand in cars by 5 to 8 times if we would indeed focus more on public transport, active and shared mobility, smaller, more affordable cars, car sharing. Well, that's really exactly what we should do, and that's a win-win-win. So we invested a lot during those negotiations on the CRM Act. Well, right now, I would say that that didn't get a lot of airplay, but there is a new objective which says that we should at least moderate the expected increase in union consumption of critical raw materials. And while in this new mandate, one of my big priorities is that we should build on that. That would actually mean that we get more efforts on resource efficiency in the plans for the Clean Industrial Deal, of course, and the Circular Economy Act. I think it's clear why we need to, if we want to increase our resilience, not just on the environmental side, but also on the economical side. There's, well, relatively few CRMs here in the EU. We should really prioritize strategies limiting that resource use. I think it's a no-brainer to do. It will make our businesses actually more competitive and less dependent, of course, on extraction of raw materials. I think we did the same thing on energy efficiency many decades ago. We succeeded in a big part, and I think we now have to do the same thing when it comes to resources. So voila, those are just a few thoughts to kickstart the debate. Very happy to hear from your testimonials, of course, more concretely on what's happening in Serbia and Bosnia Herzegovina. So thanks a lot again for all of you here, because for me, as a lawmaker, it's really important to have these very concrete exemptions and examples of how this is actually going to impact a lot of local communities, how this is going to impact our environment. So that always helps when we're going into discussion with colleagues, of course, when we are, for instance, saying that they need to be aware of long-term consequences. Voila, looking forward to hear from all of you.
Thank you so much. And I'm very glad you raised the topic of resource use reduction. I think that's so crucial, and that's what we really need to go more to, because yeah, saving raw materials is also saving human rights violations. And yeah, I want to now go directly. I want to first talk about the case on Bosnia. That's a case that is much less covered in media, but at the same time, much is going on there. And you've experienced a big increase in interest on minerals. You've experienced a lot of also SLAP cases and against civil society raising their voice. And Vladimir, I want first to give you the word. Vladimir Topic is coordinator on energy and climate change at the Center for Environment in Banja Luka. He's also part of Friends of the Earth. And yeah, I would like you to give us the more overview on how is the situation in Bosnia, what are the challenges, and then together with Soran, we'll dig deeper also into environmental aspects.
Okay, thank you. One more time, Vladimir Topic, Center for Environment for Bosnia. I'm over here just to pass some information to you what's happening actually in Bosnia and Herzegovina regarding this activities on geological research and potential mining for critical raw materials in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Because actually we have some kind of the shadow, but it's not a shadow because some projects jump up actually in the last years. And actually people in some organizations, and we also as organization found out for some projects. For example, lithium projects, same as in Serbia, similar like in Serbia, is planned to be on the left side, on the eastern part of the Bosnia, very close to the Drina River and very close to the Jadar project in Serbia. For that project, we found out in the media and on the website of the private company, Arcor, based in Zug in Switzerland, and as local communities on that locality, and we also try to find out more information. So we have actually a huge problem regarding the transparency of these projects. But the situation in Bosnia, it's actually crucial to mention some projects. But besides Bosnia, we have some projects in Serbia. We will have a chance to hear for some of them later. But also some projects are planned in Montenegro and in North Macedonia. So this is somehow the regional topic and regional activities and regional, let's say, problem. Right now in Bosnia, we have more than 10 locations where these projects are planned. On 2 locations in Olovo and Vareš place, we have already active and operational mining sites. On more than, to be exact, on 6 localities, we have researching geological research activities on for these critical raw materials. And on more than 5 locations, we have plans for researching for some minerals. But regarding these activities on researching and to planning future activities, we have, let's say, environmental problems even now, and we have problems regarding the public participation and human rights violations. Why? Bosnia and Herzegovina is a part of Green Agenda also for the Western Balkan. It's Sofia Declaration. And right now in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we don't have proper energy transition. People and citizens in Bosnia and Herzegovina still don't have that chance to produce and to consume same energy as other countries in the region, and they not have that possibility to be a presumer, to produce the same electricity for themselves and to consume that electricity. We're talking about citizen or community energy. All the things regarding the energy transition happening between the huge companies, private companies, domestic and foreign companies, with some institution in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So regarding the energy transition, everything going in that direction to take some space and to create renewable energy and to go in that direction that private companies can produce and to export. Actually, Bosnia and Herzegovina is one of the biggest exporters in the Balkans when we talk about electricity. But when we talk about these new type of the projects searching for the minerals in Bosnia and Herzegovina, as I say, we have more than 10 localities. Also, we know what mine means for the people in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because Bosnia and Herzegovina right now have 11 locations for the coal mines. Just in the last 2 years, we have completely 3 new localities for the coal mines. On each locality, we have some problems. We have pollution, we have violation of the human rights. For some local communities, the water supplyment is completely cut on some rivers and some agricultural land. We have the huge pollution. We do the researching and we do the water analysis, and we have actually proofs for these activities. So instead to go to say goodbye to the fossil fuels and to the coals, in last 2 years in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have completely 3 new coal mines. All coals actually goes from outside from the Bosnia, so the private company do the exporting. I will not go in that direction to say that €1 is a concession fee for the 1 ton of the coal in Bosnia and Herzegovina. So regarding the activities on the mining site for the critical minerals in Vareš town, we actually in this March have concrete activities, but before, during the researching and during the preparation work to opening this mine, there we actually have also several incidents. The private company, Adriatic Metals, cut accidentally several hundreds of the forest in that region. Water supply for the nearest town, Kakanj, is critically endangered right now. On other localities, we have a strong opinion from the local communities that they don't want to allow this mining activities and even researching activities on their local communities. One of them is Ozren region. My colleague Zoran will talk a little bit about concrete situation there, but on Majevica, where the lithium project is based, we also have strong opinion from the local community, and they create initiative, they collect the petition, they make the protests, and they collect the petition and make the initiative, and everything more than 3,000 signs they collect, and they send that to the National Assembly, and they refuse all they even didn't consider it what they will do with that, so they completely refuse that initiative. On other localities like Pliva Valley, we also have planning and researching. So on several locations, we have a rich agricultural land. We have people who actually live there, produce the food. Bosnia and Herzegovina is the actually 5th country regarding the richness of the drinkable water per capita. And in country like Bosnia and Herzegovina, in locations like Ozren and Majevica, where we actually have ongoing activities because we have in our special plan, we have intentions to create from these areas national parks and nature parks. Bosnia and Herzegovina is a country that only have 3% of territory under protection. How we will fulfill our biodiversity strategy and other strategy to protect at least 30% of the area until 2030? How we will fulfill that if we have on these localities that are planned to be protected, if we have on these localities mining activities or plans for the mining activities? So huge question is over there, how we will fulfill also these mining activities if we right now have huge problems with existing coal mines and other potential, not coal mines, but other mines. For example, we have huge floods over there in the last 10 days in Bosnia, but the biggest, one of the biggest thing why we actually have that amount of the victims in Bosnia is that we have one illegal quarry or stone mine near the one village. And after that amount of the water comes, that water creates landslide and create that amount of the casualties. So right now in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we don't have proper environmental standards. We're talking about environmental standards. When we say that we have approvals for some pollutions in some active mines or some regions where we have researching, when we do the water analysis and send these analyses to the inspections or some institutions, they go on the terrain and they say, okay, everything is fine. And we have active pollutions on one locality near mine coal in the last 2 years, and nothing happening there. People can anymore can't use that water. People can't use the water for farming or agriculturing, and life in that area around that mines is completely impossible. And I'm talking about mines, very small mines. For these critical raw materials and for the potential mines in this sector, we have areas 50 and 100 square kilometers that are planned for the researching and for opening mines. So right now in Bosnia and Herzegovina, with these environmental standards and with some violation regarding human rights, for example, last year, one entity in Bosnia and Herzegovina adopted the defamation law. That same entity have the intentions to adopt a law for the foreign agents to probably to do some regulations on NGOs and other. And also from the beginning of this year, we have completely new law. We have changes in the new law for the geological research. In that law, they completely exclude public participation and opinion from the local community. So local community can anymore say, no, we don't want this, or we ask for this, or we ask for something others. No, they can't do that anymore because they exclude that article from the law for the geological research. And right now, everything is going in that direction, just to create a very short and quick procedure and to give everything to the companies who wants to the companies and for the extraction of these minerals. With this situation right now in Bosnia, with these laws and the pretty pretty poor environmental standards and without regulations, I mean laws and bylaws and other things, doing this researching and with pollution that exists already now, we are in that position that in one very rich area with biodiversity, 56% of Bosnia is covered by forest. We are in that position that we will for sure, right now we are doing on that, but we will for sure be in that position to campaign for moratorium on these critical raw materials, because people live there, people produce the food there, and we need nature protection and conservation, and we need to fulfill other things regarding biodiversity strategy. So thank you, but I want just to pass this information. We will continue with the activities, but I'm over here just to ask for your support and to raise awareness about this issue and to concretely say what we will do about this. We will not give up about this, our activities. We want to protect people and nature in our country. So this campaign will be on moratorium on all activities regarding critical raw materials in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Why? Because we want to fight for the people and nature in Bosnia. Thank you.
Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot, Vladimir. And I want to hand over to Zoran, and also staying on the case of Bosnia. And Zoran Poljasevic holds an MSc in environmental engineering from the University of Novi Sad and the Faculty of Technical Science. And you have raised the voice, your concern about, you have been working for a licensed firm to provide environmental protection services, and you have also been a teacher in ecology and environmental protection in high schools. And you have raised the concerns about the ongoing risks for nature, and you have already experienced personally the impact of it and have lost your job. So you can feel how difficult it is to raise the voice on these issues. And I would like to give you the word to explain a little bit more on this case and also the environmental issues. And yes, thanks for being here. And you will speak in.
Thank you. I'll speak. I'm not fluent in English, and I'll speak in Serbian, but my friend will translate. Prije svega želim svima se zahvalim, posebno organizatorima što su nam pružili priliku da mi kao mala zajednica možemo da vam se obratimo ovdje evropskim parlamentarcima i da, kako da kažem, Evropa čuje naš glas.
First of all, thank you for this opportunity, especially for the organizers for this opportunity, because we are a small community and this is a huge, let's say, success for us to speak on this event and to spread our word.
Ja živim na planini Ozren, koja se nalazi na sjevernom dijelu Bosne i Hercegovine u entitetu Republika Srpska.
I live in Ozren mountain in the northern part and in the Republic of Srpska, and on that locality where we have these activities regarding potential mining.
Područje planine Ozren je jako bogato, ima jako visoku biološku raznovrsnost, to je stanište velikih zvijeri poput medvjeda, vuka, ugroženih vrsta vodozemaca i slijepih miševa.
Ozren region is very rich regarding biodiversity. When we say about biodiversity, we say that several species in the group of large carnivores lives there, some endangered species and some species from red lists in the group of amphibians and bats and crustaceans lives there also.
Također na Ozrenu obitavaju dvije endemske vrste u kompleksu od 6 pećina, što mokrih, što suvih, od kojih je najpoznatija velika mokra megara.
Also we have a cave complex there with some dry and wet caves, and it's a cave complex, one of the 6 of them. We have 6 of them, but most famous is Mokra megara, and we have some endemic species inside of this case.
Također, gustina populacije crnog bora na planini Ozren je jedna od najintenzivnijih u čitavoj Evropi.
Also, the population of it's not population, but amount of the
Gustina.
black pine is one of the highest in Ozren when we talk about Southeastern Europe.
Planina Ozren je također stanište trave i ive, čije je branje uvršteno u UNESCO-ovu nematerijalnu kulturnu baštinu čovječanstva.
Also on Ozren, we have one special herb, it's called Iva, and that herb is on list of UNESCO immaterial heritage. And the traditional way of collecting that herb is on UNESCO, is on that list actually.
Pored toga, područje je bogato materijalnim kulturno-istorijskim nasljeđem. Na tom području nalazi se 3 srednjovjekovna pravoslavna manastira i više nekropola stećaka koji su pogrebni, znači spomenici srednjovjekovni karakteristični za južne Slovene na Balkanu.
And when we talk about the cultural heritage, we have several locations where we have medieval stone graveyards. We call that stečak, and it's something. It's from medieval period in Bosnia, and also we have several cultural sites like Orthodox monasteries and other things on Ozren mountain.
Zbog svega navedenog, područje Ozrena, jedan veliki dio planine koji obuhvata planinski masiv, je i kandidovan prostornim planom Republike Srpske za zaštitu na nivou nacionalnog parka.
Because all of this regarding the biodiversity, cultural and everything before, that is the reason why we before some institutions created special plan and put these localities to be a national park actually.
Međutim, ništa od ovih argumenata o ovim vrijednostima ovog područja nije spriječilo kako jednu australijsku kompaniju, tako ni naše vlasti, da ta kompanija dobije dozvolu, da počne na tom području da vrši detaljna geološka istraživanja, koja su naravno prvi korak za eksploataciju teških metala, nikla i kobalta.
But all these arguments didn't stop, they are not considered by Australian company to think about this locality, and they started to do researching on this locality to find out the heavy metals, but especially nickel and cobalt.
Prije 3 godine, kada su počele te aktivnosti, one nisu sprovođene na transparentan i zakonom propisan način. Mi smo bili zatečeni tek nakon nekoliko mjeseci i zahvaljujući tome što je kompanija listirana na australijskoj berzi, mi smo imali podatke o čemu se radi.
3 years ago, they started to prepare the ground and to do some concrete activities there. I mean, that company, Australian company, it's called Balkans Metals. They started 3 years ago to do some activities. They started, first of all, to create some public hearing, but people in that area didn't know for that public hearing. And because of the lack of the transparency, they found out for these activities after several months.
Poučeni iskustvom iz susjedne Srbije od prije nekih 15 godina, gdje su također bile slične aktivnosti. Također strana kompanija je došla u Srbiju da vrši geološka istraživanja nikla sa namjerom da vrši eksploataciju. I tada je Srpska akademija nauka kao krovno akademsko tijelo Republike Srbije izašla sa naučnim radom, ekspertizom koja je dokazala da je daleko veća šteta od koristi. Znači, pri takvim projektima da se području gdje se eksploatiše nikl nanosi nepopravljiva šteta u pogledu životne sredine, kvaliteta životne sredine.
So at that moment, 2 years ago, when they found out for these activities, they also found out the situation what happened in Serbia 15 years ago. Also, one private company have a plans to do some activities on 3 locations in the western part of the Serbia to do the researching for these minerals. And at that moment, 15 years ago, the Serbian academic community said that project is not good for environment at that moment, and they stop all activities in Serbia at that moment for the same elements and on same geological surface as on Ozren they have at that moment.
Pošto je Ozren posebno bogat što površinskim, što podzemnim vodama, u svim ozrenskim rijekama obitava, živi riječni rak koji je ugrožena vrsta. Eksploatacija nikla nikako ne bi bila poželjna jer znamo da je nikl posebno opasan i toksičan po vodene ekosisteme.
And when we know the fact that Ozren region is very rich regarding the water, not only on the surface but also in underground, and because some communities use that water on daily basis, they know that also they have these endemic species, and that region is very rich with the water. They started to think morely about this project and to do something correctly.
Kompanija planira istražne radnje na površini od čak 100 kvadratnih kilometara. Znači na samom tom, na istražnom polju živi oko 15.000 stanovnika, a uticaj projekta bi išao i na više od 100.000 stanovnika u području koje se naslanja na planinu Ozren.
Yeah, company have a plans to do researching on the area of 100 square kilometers, and only in that area right now we have 15,000 people who actually live there, and the potential impact can be on a bigger area, and in that area can be affected around 100,000 people.
Kao neko ko se bavi i ko je obrazovan iz oblasti zaštite životne sredine, uzeo sam učešće u prvo osnivanju udruženja građana preko kojeg smo od prije 3 godine počeli da intenzivno vršimo edukaciju stanovništva u pravcu da svo stanovništvo ima potrebno znanje šta taj projekat donosi, zato što naše vlasti i investitor nisu po tom pitanju ništa uradili.
As someone who have actually some ecological background, at that moment they established environmental association with other people in that region, and they started to do work morely on education and awareness.
Zahvaljujući našem radu, prvobitna licenca koju je kompanija imala uslijed nekih neregularnosti koje smo mi primijetili i prijavili je oduzeta tom preduzeću. Također imali smo nelegalno elektromagnetno geološko istraživanje na području planine Ozren, koje smo također uredno prijavili policiji i tužilaštvu.
And when they start doing this research, they found out some irregularities, because they get the permit for do some researching on one part in that area, but they actually do the researching also on another part, and they do all, let's say, legit ways to stop these activities, and they successfully do that 2 times. One time they completely banned the researching on some area because they didn't have proper permits, and on another locality because they do the researching with helicopters. They also forbid that kind of researching because they didn't have adequate permits for that, and they get the answer that type of the researching is have a huge consequences in some area where people live actually.
Međutim, kompanija i vlasti se nisu zaustavili na tome, počele su, znači imali smo 2 izmjene zakona u posljednjih godinu dana o geološkim istraživanjima.
Yeah, but the company didn't stop with that, and later they continue with their activities, and they with these new changes in the law, because this law for the geological research was changed 2 times during 2022 and this year.
Ja sam lično učestvovao prilikom posljednje izmjene zakona na javnoj raspravi o zakonu. Nakon samo 2 dana ja sam zbog toga izgubio svoj posao.
And during this year, when they start to change this law for the geological research, on one public hearing he go and he take a word and say what actually they are have, what actually is opinion from his opinion and opinion from the local communities. And after that public hearing, after 2 days, he lost his job.
To nije jedini pritisak. Moje kolege su imale i opasnije prijetnje i po bezbjednost porodice i još strašnije stvari.
And that is not only the pressure, because his colleagues and other activists have other types of the pressures.
Prije svega, htio bih da naglasim da uslijed ovih aktivnosti i postupaka ljudi u Bosni i Hercegovini, pošto u Bosni i Hercegovini mi imamo strane sudije iz Europe u sudstvu, mi imamo instituciju OHR-a, imamo instituciju visokog predstavnika, međutim pravosuđe ništa ne preduzima po ovom pitanju.
And we informed some prosecutors and high representative in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and they know about these things and about these facts, but we don't see any concrete action regarding these topics, and that is the reason why the people are concerned about these things.
Bez obzira na sve, mi ćemo nastaviti da odbranimo naše postojanje na planini Ozren. To je narod koji je puno stradao, koji je jako vezan za tu teritoriju. Bez obzira da li ovakve, da se razumijemo, da li ovakve projekte, da li investitori dolazili sa zapada ili sa istoka.
And no matters from what part the investitor came, from east or west, we will continue with our activities because we want to preserve that area and we want to continue our life there.
Nadam se da će evropski parlamentarci koji čuju, koji danas kada dopre do njih ovo stanje na terenu, imati način da nam pomognu i da iz ovog konflikta izađemo na obostranu korist. Toliko od mene i hvala.
I hope that European Parliament and the other peoples can hear more about this and that they will actually do something if they have a chance to do something concretely regarding this. Thank you.
I naravno pozivam vas da dođete na planinu Ozren da se sami uvjerite u ovo o čemu pričam.
Also, I want to invite you all of us, if you have a chance to come on Ozren region and to see concretely on the terrain what's happening there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think there's so much we need to know in this context, so it's very difficult to be short on this. We have, but still, I want to, and we have also Serbia to cover now after this. But I would like to give the chance for questions because I think it's not very often the chance you can talk on this case here. So I would like to gather the questions, give you the possibility to answer, and then go over to Serbia. Yes, please.
Thank you. Frauke Sebers for the German Institute for Security and International Affairs here in Brussels. Just a quick question regarding what you said about the export of energy. You said Bosnia is one of the biggest energy exporters of the region. And I was wondering, first of all, where do you export to? But also, what are maybe related interests to that, for example, state revenues and so on, that might give leverage to the other side to the side that is not interested in environmental protection. Thank you.
Hi, Claire Fernandez, working for European Digital Rights and Tech Policies. But I was wondering if you could say a bit more about the reactions of the local communities depending on the region. For example, perhaps the region of Vares, as far as I could be there, because it's such a deprived area with a history of mining. I found that the local population, despite being disillusional about what the trickle-down effect would be for them, is also supportive because it's some industry. So I was wondering, like, how you, if you could say a bit more about that and how you engage with these local communities, depending on the area.
Thanks. I'm Toby Fogel from Democratization Policy Council here in Brussels. Thank you so much for these two amazing presentations. I really learned a lot. I'm wondering whether you've done or whether you're aware of anyone else having done an analysis of how this ties in with the issue of state property and the disposal ban. We've had a recent court ruling, obviously, on that in the Federation, I think. Because I can't really wrap my head around it. I'm not a lawyer. It's not my area of specialty, but it seems to me that there's something going on there politically also, specifically at OHR. So if you're aware of any analysis of that, I'd be grateful.
Okay, I will give both of you the 2 minutes to answer the questions, and then afterwards we hope we go more into detail. After having heard Serbia, you can go more into detail. But yeah, giving you 2 minutes to respond to this.
Okay, for me, I just want to start with the first question. It's regarding, as I understand, sorry, I need to repeat, is about exporting of the electricity and what is the context regarding this. Or I mentioned this thing about electricity because annually, every year, around 30% of electricity, Bosnia and Herzegovina exporting actually, and but regarding this energy transition and everything, that is a huge business actually in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because every year we have a lot of companies, and for now just 1,300 megawatts in Republic of Srpska, which is one entity in Bosnia and Herzegovina, as it is given to the private companies, several of them, to do solar power plants just in the last 1 year. From other side, people in Bosnia and Herzegovina and in the Republic of Srpska, for example, they don't have that rights, and they don't have that possibility to produce and to consume that for themselves. So that is, and we have some kind of energy transition, but this energy transition is not properly done, and it's still ongoing, but it's not a proper way how the energy transition is going in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And when we talk about electricity, it's a huge business for the public and also for the other companies. But when we talk about that, okay, they exporting, but this is the same situation. The critical minerals will be digged in Bosnia and Herzegovina and will go on. What we actually have, the same thing like in electricity, we don't have development, that is also the answer for this. We have several mines already in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and we know what is the mining means. But this type of the mining, for some of them, we have a lot of employees in the mining sector, that is true, but at one moment we will need to, for example, for the coal, we will need to create phase out. But for other locations, we will lose more than what we actually will get. Adriatic company in Vareš, they assign with the canton, Zenica Dobaj canton, the concession contract, and to pay a fee for 1 hectare, to pay at first moment 1,500 euros or marks. I don't know exactly, but 1,500. Second time, they changed that with institutions and with cantonal government, and they changed that for 150 marks or euros, 10 times less than at beginning. What the local community will have, that we will have a chance to see in the next year. And on other localities where we have at the mine sites, we don't see any development or any progress in these local communities. And as I say, we have this type of the exporting electricity, but what is the actually development for the people in Bosnia and Herzegovina? We have several locations where we have mines, but what are actually the development for these local communities? And especially when we have the private companies over there. A Republic of Srpska entity in Bosnia and Herzegovina didn't change the rule book for the concession fee in the last 15 years. In the last 15 years, on the market, price for the coal jump up to 10 or more times. And they have 1.2 euros per ton for lignite, for example. So that is not answer. For Bosnia and Herzegovina, mining industry or mines are not the future and potential in the coming years. For third question, yeah. Can I start? I'm not sure, but I will start to answer me. I'm not sure that you're listening to me. Yeah. we have that situation. What actually happened on that locality, on Vareš and Kakanj region? We have that decision. Federal government decide, okay, you can change the forest and forestry land and change completely and make the construction land for that. After some period, we have this decision on the highest court in the Bosnia and Herzegovina, and they say, okay, this is wrong, create something different, but this is not the proper way to do this. It would be, we also looking what will happen because expiring day is at Friday to make that decision and to create some progress regarding that decision. But right now, people in Bosnia don't know anything about that, what we will have. Actually, only we know that OHR have some activities regarding that. And they preparing something, but if I can remember several days ago, we have some meeting in Hamburg. Some representatives from Bosnia and Herzegovina adopt some declaration before this Berlin process. And they say that this decision-making process will be on the entities, on cantonal level, and other things. So at the state level, we will not have unique decision regarding these topics. So right now, OHR is the responsible for that, but this also with lack of the transparency, people don't know much about that, which is also very problematic.
Okay, Soren, do you want to give some short comments on this, and then we need to.
Maybe about last question. Bosnia and Herzegovina is complex, very complex country, and we have a high representative and everything. They talk some progressive story, but on the ground, nothing progressive happened. You know, this mining project, they are active both in Federation and the Republika Srpska. No, there is no stopping these activities. They are only going up. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. So we will now continue with Serbia. And yeah, we have talked more on Serbia already. I think the rough context that there have been a lot of protests and a lot of infringements of rights in the past you have heard, and we will go more into detail now. And Alexander, you, Matkovic, you will go, you're author and research fellow at the Institute of Economics in Belgrade and also member of China Law and Development Network of Oxford University in the UK and an external fellow of the Transnational Institute in Amsterdam. And you're also member of the Green Left Party Zeloni Levi Front in Serbia. And Alexander, you have looked more into the economic aspects of this as well, and economy is always used as the argument to open a mine, and you are going more into detail on this. And yeah, handing over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I won't waste your time much more. I'll actually start with one of the threats that I've received so that you can actually go on, you know, in medias res, as they say. So I'm reading. You didn't understand anything. We know about your relationships with the leaders of the revolt. We follow you, we will track you, and you can't even ask the police for help because you know full well you can't. Believe me. Stay away for a while if you want to keep writing and breathing. You did not understand that you should be worried for yourself and for your little brother. This message came after the visit of German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in July, Serbia, when he signed several memorandums of understanding with Stellantis, Mercedes-Benz, and the Serbian government. And this case is very interesting because the message itself was written in German. I've reported this to the police, and I've reported this to the UN Special Rapporteur for the Environment. The Serbian police, as the message had indicated, didn't do a thing, just as the message implied. I also subsequently wrote an open letter to the German embassy in Serbia. I wrote an open letter to Rio Tinto. Rio Tinto replied with a threat of a lawsuit against me, while the German embassy actually stood silent. and allowed things to escalate further. They offered no response. And I think the silence of the Western embassies in this case is something from which we need to start. Because in my view, this has allowed things to escalate further. This leads us to a crucial question. So what's the green transition? This is what I was thinking about after the events. What is the green transition good for if it means violence for the peoples of the periphery? If it means violence for the peoples of the periphery so that the countries of the core could achieve a green transition? What is it good for if we need to sacrifice people for a green transition? After all, it was the whole idea of the green transition to serve the people in a healthy environment. And this is a European problem, not a Serbian one. That we are indeed dealing here is an unequal transition within Europe. And I intentionally say Europe, and not only the European Union, of which Serbia is not a part of. We, as a whole, as Europe, we are part of Europe. As a country, we are part of Europe as a whole. And because of this, we must speak on an equal footing amongst ourselves. And I think what's happening is that this equal footing has been endangered since Rio Tinto's own project came to the Balkans. It came with violence. It brought violence to the Balkans along with it, despite the rhetoric of it bringing in human rights and the rule of law. Because what is happening is the exact opposite. If the rule of law was respected, the above message and the violence and the death threats would never have happened. I was threatened also, and this is quite specific, in my capacity as a scientist, along with others of dissenting opinions. And I also wanted to present you the controversial data, so to speak, why I think these will lead to the exploitation of humans in nature. So maybe we can move on to the slides, basically. So first of all, Rio Tinto has been in Serbia for over 20 years right now, and the economic feasibility study was only done in September 2023, once the project was actually banned. So for 20 years, we've been having a company here, and by no means do I want to personally thank the company, just to be clear on this, but this is the fact that after 20 years, we are conducting an economic feasibility study. It is if you are constructing a home, and then once you construct your home, you ask the architect, you know, what should I put a roof on it or what? So basically, you know, after 20 years, during the time that the project was banned in 2022, they conduct an economic feasibility study while the project was banned. And we can also, okay, so this is the next slide. This feasibility study was also subsequently analyzed by some of my colleagues who also received threats of lawsuit from Rio Tinto. And the numbers and the figures, I think, are quite interesting. So far, we have been basically taunting PR figures used by Rio Tinto, but if we look at the study a little bit closer, and here I'm quoting from my colleagues, it does not actually amount to this miracle, economic miracle that was basically taunted to us by both the Serbian government and Rio Tinto. And not to mention this idea that this project will be the first bastion of the European Union in Serbia. So I'm not saying that there will be no economic benefits. I'm saying that it will not be revolutionary. So basically, just to give you some figures, the project itself will be making 17.4 million euros to Serbia annually at current prices. If you divide it by per capita, if you divide it by population, it's 2.6 euros per capita and 696 million in total by the project's end. The project will last for 40 years. And the thing is, the most of the infrastructure will be built by Serbia, roads, gas pipes, railways. Also Serbia, and this is very interesting because I'm not sure that people know how these Balkans economies function. We usually rely on FDI, for which we need to get subsidies. We usually subsidize the hell out of the companies, and we often have to get indebted in order to subsidize the companies. So we basically almost act as if an intermediary body. And this is very interesting because in an open letter I wrote for which I got the death threats, I was actually pointing out that this is a dangerous scenario which may be repeated, and turns out it did. The Serbian government said it will give 490 million euros subsidies to a company called Inobat. and 48 million to a company called Stellantis. So we'll be subsidizing the battery production, we'll be subsidizing the car production, and basically there are more subsidies being given to the to people buying the electric vehicles, up to 80%. So from the point of production to the point of consumption, we'll be subsidizing everything, along also with Germany and possibly the European Union. So I think this is a problem. At the same time, Rio Tinto will see profits from year 11 of the project totaling at 11.4 billion euros. While, according to a study I'm quoting here, they will be paying taxes only for 12 years out of 40 years for the project. Why did I mention the subsidy problem? And this is, of course, not only about Rio Tinto. This is about basically the lithium mining and the whole value chain, which is being taught basically by the government and by the companies, as you know, something that's like basically being given to us as a gift. So the problem is that all of these, according to the law on foreign direct investments in Serbia, we don't have any budget constraints in terms of how much subsidies we can give. So basically, we can give subsidies more than the budget we have. This has been leading to, next slide, basically an increase in the deficit of the balance of payments. And this is an IMF report basically forecasting that the thing will get even worse as the time goes by. So it's, I think, a bit more of a complicated situation than is being presented in the media. And this is all I wanted to say at this point, but we can go into the discussion more. Next slide. What I did in the open letter was also take FDI in the mining sector of Serbia. And once again, I mentioned it's not only about the other projects, it's about basically the Balkans being mining sites, you know, for the green transition. And if you look at the data, that's exactly what's written. So in the last 10 years, the mining FDI has increased. And what's interesting here and how it connects to the project itself is that they have been increased sixfold since the project was banned. So in 2022, we have the banning of the project, while at the same time, we have an explosion of foreign direct investments in mining. And if we look at basically, has this translated into higher living standards of Serbia? No, it has not. We still have in the mining cities of Bor, for example, an unemployment rate of 11.9%, high inequality. People who work for the mine are basically also not even nationals of Serbia because it's a Chinese mine. We have a deficit of manual workers. We have a deficit of construction workers, a deficit of electricians. And so basically we import, you know, Chinese labor force basically. And I think that any company, not only China, but also like, you know, European companies and like Western companies, any company, Serbian companies, if you have a deficit of workers, then you need to import them from somewhere. So the local benefits might not be that high, and we can see this. And basically in the last 10 years, the average of FDI in Serbia has been around 5.84 before reaching almost 8% basically, and without contributing further than that much to the rise of GDP. So I say we will have lackluster effects despite an explosion in the mining sector, which and this brings us back to the topic, which has actually been driven by Rio Tinto. Yeah, so it can have been buying lands and whatnot during the time that the project was banned. Next slide, please. Why this is important? If we look at what's going on, we see an increase in the raw materials extraction in Serbia. And next slide again. And this is important because what's going on here is that if you look at other factors, indicators like resource productivity, Serbia has been going back into the green transition rather than going forward. We have been extracting more materials, not using it economically or efficiently as previously thought. We have been an increase in the mining investments by 600%. Extraction has increased by 22%. Mining waste has increased by 150%. And this is leading us nowhere to the green transition. Next slide. Why this is very problematic? Because if we want to look at the future, we are basically, you know, why we are doing this? What is there any good for Europe in this? I think the problem here is basically that we are estimating the demand on very problematic grounds. I've contacted Rio Tinto, I've contacted the Ergo Group, which dealt with the economic feasibility study for Rio Tinto, and even people who did the lithium demands for the European Parliament. Turns out basically all of them have even outsourced the studies, and some of them have actually said to me that basically the current crisis of the German car industry may jeopardize basically this and the lithium demand, upon which we are basing the idea that mine will be here and it will be beneficial. So I think if you look ahead in 40 years, we will see basically a new division in Europe between the mining states and the states which are basically using and recycling lithium. I think this will strengthen the authoritarianism in the Balkans. And if you want to actually, to come back to what has been said, if you want to lower and avoid human rights abuses in the periphery, we need to reduce the demand. We need to reduce basically the demand because the critical raw materials were not based on needs, human needs. We basically based them on, new cell phones, new cars, which are also in Europe like premium cars. They're not like cheap cars, because of which they need subsidies. All of this is quite problematic. And I think if you want to avoid human rights abuses, that's why you need to degrow, you need to lower the demand. And basically, if you do not do that, I think we will see an increase in the violence in the Balkans in the name of the green transition. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Alexander. I think that was very impressive, the numbers here. And I want now to go over to Jovan Vajs. You're a lawyer and founder of the Renewable Environmental Regulatory Institute, short VERI, based in Serbia. And you've since a decade been working on energy and environmental law and trying to improve legal frameworks in this context, and also for the compliance. You have followed cases and cases against polluters and governments and investors who were breaching the national law and undermining international obligations and agreements. And I also want to hand you over to you now the questions: how the rule of law, the big question, and how do you see the preparation for the project? How have they kicked off, and how has the adherence to the law been? Over to you.
Thank you. So good afternoon, and thanks to the organizers for inviting me today to address Parliament, and thank you all for attending this session, because this is a topic that is very important for my country and for the people living in my country. I will try to give you a brief overview on the mining projects in Serbia in general. So the current situation, I would say, with the mining projects is rather chaotic. Government of Serbia is neither willing nor capable to enable compliance of the investors with the applicable laws and international treaties, and to impose proper sanctions for the breaching of legal framework. Instead, it is very often, unfortunately, a compliance in these misconducts of the investors. My organization is currently having exactly 80 cases against the mining company Zijin in Bor, out of which 52 court procedures and 28 administrative procedures. And these are all kinds of processes. And for various reasons, we initiated these procedures: pollution of air, soil, water, illegal construction of mining facilities, illegal exploration, inspection, surveillance procedures, environmental impact assessment studies, operating without them, and also operating before obtaining them, commercial offenses, criminal procedures against the directors, against the company, you name it, we have it, everything. We are monitoring this project from the very beginning, and unfortunately, we must notice certain similarities with this very early stage in which the project of Rio Tinto happening in Serbia. The entire state and the government's media machine is mobilized in order to discredit all criticizers of this project, all competent people who are opposing to this project, not opposing per se, but giving some doubts and share some arguments which should be taken into consideration. They are immediately declared as enemies of the state. Entire political machine is mobilized to discredit these people and to explain that the only expert community is the one who is supporting this project. Unfortunately, the institutions are not doing their job. Rather than they should provide legality of the process, and the best help that the investors can have from the state is the state to secure the legal framework, fulfillment of legal framework, and to enable, I would say, fair market conditions and standards. This is what the investor should expect from the state, not to be lobbyists of any company. Unfortunately, our government is acting that way. Considering legal and administrative deficiencies that follows this early stage of Rio Tinto project in Serbia, I would point out only to few of them. And to be completely clear, this is not entirely upon the acting of the company itself, but the government and the competent institutions in Serbia. For example, in 2022, the group of NGOs submitted People's Initiative to the parliament with more than 38,000 of the certified signatures of the citizens of Serbia requesting debate on the lithium in the national parliament. Apparently, immediately after submission of this initiative, it was lost somewhere in the National Assembly of Serbia, literally and physically lost in the building. This is official explanation of the government. After massive protests back in 2022, the government of Serbia suspended the project by adopting the decision, the decree, which suspended spatial plan of the special purpose for the Jadar Valley, which was challenged by the company in front of the Constitutional Court. And the Constitutional Court was silent for about 2 years. They don't have the deadlines to render the decision. They don't have deadlines to decide. So sometimes in Serbia, when you're expecting decision of the Constitutional Court, you can have it in 2 months period, or you can have it in 15 years period. Nobody knows when this happened. But in this particular case, somehow the decision of Constitutional Court was complied with the statements of the figures in highest political figures in Serbia, who announced that the government will rethink on this decision and how this project is strategically important for Serbia, and how we should not be the only fools. This is, I'm quoting the president of the state, the only fools who would decline to use what the God gave us. So, surprisingly, right upon that, Constitutional Court adopted its decision and suspended previous decision of the government, meaning the project revived again. And now goes my critics to the EU, and it's very important to have it said in this building, because in 2023, in September, Mr. Maroš Šefčovič, on behalf of the EU, signed letter of intent with our government, with the Serbian government, at the moment where the project was officially suspended. So I raise this as a serious issue, which is questionable for I would say, reputation and credibility of the European Union's institution. How could the official of the EU sign the document which encouraged development of the project, which is officially suspended by the government of the state? I'm not surprised that our government did that, but I'm surprised that the EU did that. Okay, I will speed this up. So, I will not now speak about, because I don't have time, about the concrete deficiencies in environmental impact assessment scoping study that was announced by the company, and the public debate was finished like on 2nd of October. But we have a translation of this document in English, and I'll be more than happy to share with all of you the comments that we sent. The most important issue in this study is that the company cutted the project into several smaller projects, which is called in practice salami slicing principle, and this is something that was not introduced by Rio Tinto. This is something the Chinese companies are already doing in Serbia and worldwide, I would say. Therefore, the bottom line is that the current government of Serbia and the current institutions in Serbia, judiciary system and all other institutions, cannot guarantee that this project at this moment will be implemented in accordance with the applicable laws and with the highest environmental standards, as they say it should be. Our president requests guarantees from Rio Tinto, from the European Greens, for the German Greens, from everybody. But the truth is that only our state could provide guarantees for this, and our state is not able to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this, and we will continue with Eva Martovic. And Eva is the program coordinator of the Organization for Political Ecology, POLECOL, and co-founder of the Right to Water initiative. And she is an environmental activist and social movement organizer, and she holds a degree in landscape architecture and also a master degree in environment development policy. And Eva, I want to hand over to you to tell us a little bit about why is there so much protest at the moment.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us here. I truly hope we will see each other again in some other opportunity, and we will not be detained at the border as many of us do. As an activist, I have a reputation of being quite direct and addressing elephants in the room always, so I'm going to address a few of them today. I will be short. The first one is, as you said, why now? Why is this now a movement that is so broad? It is mobilizing hundreds of thousands of people in the street, and even more probably from their homes, being afraid to go out on the street. Well, it's not really only just now. This is the movement that has been brewing for almost a decade. We've been building a movement from local initiatives that were engaged with various environmental problems. So not only mines, and especially not only this company and this lithium mine. The movement did not start with lithium, and it will probably not end with lithium. We were dealing with rivers, with small hydropower plants. We're dealing with air pollution, coal, especially problems with this kind of malfunctioning energy transition. We were dealing also with illegal dump sites. We were dealing with nature protection and illegal forest cutting as well on our protected areas. Many things gathered local communities to participate in solidarity in also each other's events, movements, and mobilizations. So the movement is not new. First to clarify this, and it was also the second elephant in the room. Always, there is always a question: why are we now? Are we anti-Western, anti-EU because we are opposing the lithium mining? We opposed many projects, many of them including Chinese companies who were polluting. We already have few mines working in the eastern part of Serbia that were owned by Chinese companies and Canadian companies. We don't really choose global politics sides here. These are local communities who are truly, truly worried about their livelihoods and their future, and more or less, I would say they're already living the green transition in on the positive side of the story, being in a area which still has healthy water, which is producing a lot of food for a country. It's a densely populated agricultural space. So these are, I would say, maybe today leaders of these protests, but the protest had been going on for a long time for various things, and also it will probably continue whenever there is a polluter problem. So the second thing is when we are talking about repression on the activists and all of the problems that we're facing, it might sound to you, okay, so the protests are violent and there is a police sorting things out. This is not what happens in Serbia. Our protests are extremely peaceful. I haven't seen anywhere around Europe, I think, the protest that is so peaceful. We're all trying to keep this discipline. If there is a blockade is very limited within hours, and it's very peaceful, and there is always some kind of agreement. How do we do this with the less possible disruption of the people, the common people that are trying to live their lives? So there is no basis to say, okay, these are some violent activists, and as media is depicting us, even eco-terrorists. So these are the terms used to explain what are we doing when we go out in the streets. Third or fourth thing, I'm not sure, is that these people and all of us, we tried every single institutional way there is. So we did not end up in the street all of a sudden. There was signing a petition, as my colleague mentioned. There was always writing complaints, going to public hearings about different cases, if there was some at all. Sometimes it's even lacking that. So we tried really to be good scouts and do all our homework, but we found out that the only thing that helps and that's preventing the controversial projects is actually the streets. And just to maybe cut down all of the repression, I just want to give you a few numbers also to have the idea. So these peaceful protests of the people who are worried about their livelihoods ended up this summer with the escalation of repression on the activists. There is 41 cases documented of arrests of people that were, all of them, the charges did not stand, and people were more or less just harassed by the authorities. There is 39 civil society organizations targeted in the media, as, again, EU mercenaries and agents of the West for the local public. And there is a totally different story. I think you might, if you were interested in the topic, heard also from our government that we're actually interfered by Eastern agents, and that is fabricated movement. So the last thing I want to say is just why this has to do something with EU, and what is the problem here? What is the controversy within EU acts on the ground? For decades, EU has been investing and supporting participation of citizens on the environmental topics. This was very important to have people on board whenever there was a project or whenever there was already a problem that wasn't solved for decades. We were there. And now when there is such a huge interested public on environmental topics, there is a very, very loud silence from the EU side when there is a repression happening to our activists and to ourselves. And secondly, I truly think that there is a huge reputational risk. The trust in EU from inside of Serbia is dropping, if you're following, as you might know this, but also on the outside and for the investors. This project is so messy that I honestly believe it is a reputational risk for EU at the global stage. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have two more short testimonials before we go to questions. There's so much to say on this because, yeah, so has so many facets, this conflict here. Ivan Jelic, oh, sorry, is journalist, environmental activist, and also member of the March from the Drina movement. And after studying journalism in Novi Sad, he returned to Požega to support his community. And Ivan, you work with the organization Forcha and on youth policy and founded the Youth Radio Action at the Aura at the radio station. And please hand over to you to also speak about the criminalization of the movement and also about the arguments that it's always brought about you're agents of somebody.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. As she mentioned, my name is Ivan Bjelic, and I'm an activist and journalist from Serbia. And for, I think, more than 5 years, the battle against Rio Tinto and the planned lithium mine in the Jadar Valley has been ongoing. During this fight, we have endured an entire echelon of media propaganda, police violence, repression, targeting from political leadership of our state. And today we stand here for one reason: whether you support this project or opposite it, you have the opportunity to meet us, called eco-terrorists in Serbia, live in parliament, and understand that we are real people with no hidden agenda, driven by only the one goal, to preserve nature of Republic of Serbia and our region for the generation to come. Speaking of agents, and since there's someone they're here to close the company Rio Tinto, I must ask, how dare you can, behind the closed door in a meeting with EU officials, call us member of environmental movement in Serbia, agents of Russia or China? This is particularly interesting because the same lobby tactic is used by government of the Republic of Serbia. A clear example is the statement by our country's president, Aleksandar Vučić, that say that at least two West secret intelligence service is behind the massive ecological movement and the protest in the Serbia. So in European Union and European Parliament, they call us Russian and China agents. In Serbia, they call us West agents, but only agents that we are is agents of nature and our culture, our country, and we want to fight to protect our land and our future from any critical project such as Jadar project in Serbia. So we are agent of nature and interested in lobbying. We are not interested in your lobbying technique on your Cold War era narratives. Why is that so? Because the Republic of Serbia, we can finally see the unification of the people from all corners of the ideological, religions, or I don't know, cultural compass. And I don't see that in Serbia for past 20 years. So this is really big move for us. Yevgeny and I and our friend Nikola go to jail after protest against Rio Tinto in 10 of August in Serbia. They give me 40 days in a prison, and Yevgeny and Nikola have 30 days in prison because we protest for our lives and our nature. After pressure of people in Serbia, they realize us from the prison after only 3 days. So when I mentioned that, I want to EU know that we in Serbia don't want to use that kind of agenda. We fight against a Chinese company also, and you can see footage on a display from my movies that I filmed about Chinese company. This is company Zijin, and this is Majdanpek. This is Planina Starica, who was destroyed because of the critical mining, like mining cobalt and copper and gold, of course. When we fight against mining, we fighting for future, and we don't need to tell us you are Russian or Chinese or German or American. We just don't want to pollute, to someone pollute our air, because the river don't have nationality, river don't have religion, and we must fight to defend them because they can do themselves. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And the last testimonial goes to you, Julian Dimitrievich, and you're from the city of Čačak, and a city by the Morava River, and you're a poet and a writer, and you're together with many other organizations who are fighting for the preservation of nature. And something which hasn't come, which only came out now swiftly before, is you've been arrested, and probably there's the risk for much more arrests on much less activities in future. And maybe you could also quickly, swiftly go into the change of the criminal law in this context, apart, from your testimony.
Pomaže Bog, znamo da ne damo, nećete kopati. What you heard are the three traditional greetings of the Serbs. Pomaže Bog would translate as, so help you God. That is a very old way of saying hello. And now, znamo da ne damo means we know we won't give it up. Nećete kopati means you won't dig it, or you shall not, as I like to put it. So what is the problem in Serbia? The problem can go to the four basic antique elements of fire, water, earth, and air. When the fire of knowledge, shall we say, and cultural heritage, and everything related to knowledge is extinguished, and all the tyrants are doing just that, then we have polluted air, polluted earth, and polluted waters. What Aleksandar Vučić is afraid of is this. It's a book. And it's a book, Jadar project, the Jadar project, what is known by Serbian Academy of Sciences and Arts. What we are not afraid of is knowledge. We are afraid of, for example, the new law they want to implement on us. So the new change of a criminal law would state that even accessing the materials, consciously accessing the materials, calling to protests, for example, or to any criminal works, will be punishable by 1 year in prison. That is what is happening right now in Serbia. They want to suit the laws. As Voltaire said, the last degree of injustice is to use the laws to protect injustice. We are sadly above that. We use injustice in Serbia to make laws. It also passes to Bosnia, it also passes to Montenegro, and the Jadar project in Serbia is just a testing project for cancer to spread over the other parts of Serbia, the eastern parts and others. And when I say cancer, I mean that should we allow it in Serbia, in Bosnia, and in Western Balkans, it will, and it's just a question of the day, spread to whole of the Europe. Milorad Pavić was born yesterday, was his date of birth. He's a famous Serbian writer. He said, whenever Europe is sick, she's searching to cure the Balkans. I'm not accusing Europe of being sick. The world is sick in his ravages search for raw materials, and it has to just blow up somewhere. We are the point on which the world is at a big risk of violating many human rights. And we are not the only ones who were arrested. People were kidnapped. Even Milosavljević was kidnapped, and he was threatened to be raped. And he was threatened in the mountains when he was alone that the wolves will spread over his body around the mountains. And the woman in the 5th month of pregnancy was arrested by the police. For 2 hours, they talked to her. So we are only the tip of an iceberg. And our days in prison are just a symptom of a sickness of Europe, of Russia, of Balkan, and of the world. Somebody has to be lying. Is it Aleksandar Vučić, who says that we are the agents of the West, or is it the America's, what's his name? Oh, Christopher Hill, sorry, I really forgot it. Christopher Hill is saying that we're the agents of the East. And while the two of them are very close, they're working together. So somebody has to be lying here. And American Christopher Hill ambassador and Alexander Vučić are both parents in a sense of violating the Constitution of the Republic of Serbia. And they're doing that. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's difficult to continue after going so deep into this. I just before ending, we will be here a little bit more, so there's much time. We have all these people, experts here, so you also have time afterwards to come with questions. Before we end, I again want to give Sarah Mathieu the word to comment, and I also want to give you, Jordan Bosanak, thanks for joining us today as well, and give you the chance as well to comment.
All right, well, thanks. I have to say that I'm quite impressed by hearing all these testimonials, but also seeing the fighting spirit that is here around the table. I think it's really, truly inspiring. And I think for us, it needs to be a huge wake-up call, honestly. Because, well, we talk about just transition in this building quite a bit. We talk about leaving no one behind whilst we are doing the green transition. And I think those are just empty words if we don't take this problematic serious. Because, well, as the European Union listening to all of this, I think we are really at risk of supporting a very extractivist, even neo-colonial agenda that really only serves those ruthless companies that put profits before taking into account human rights, environmental standards, and social standards, let alone those violations you are talking about that you encountered as activists. So I think it's very clear that both on the side of participation, but also on the side of these rights you have as activists, it's really problematic. But then, of course, the question is, what can we do? What can we do from the EU side? Well, one of the things, and that is, of course, still very broad, but I mentioned it in the beginning, is indeed the fact that we need to reduce the demand. That's very clear, that we absolutely need to do. And we need to focus, of course, also on recycling, making sure that those raw materials will be less needed than some of the projections we are seeing right now. But I think it's also really a question of making sure that there's external pressure when it comes to the respect of rule of law, when it comes to, for instance, dealing with governments that are really using intimidation tactics, that are using media disinformation tactics, etc. I mean, as an EU, we can't just let that happen. We have a reputation when it comes to protecting those very important values. And I mean, it's absurd hearing to you guys hear these governments claim that, well, NGOs are really EU mercenaries. That's just completely crazy. We really need to push back on that. We need to strengthen the EU support when it comes to those very important democratical processes. And well, we know when it comes to this specific project in November, the Critical Raw Materials Board will make a decision on the strategic status of that project. And that's really what we've warned about all along. I think that those testimonials that we heard today really show that we can't call those projects strategic if they are actually risking our environment, our rule of law, and really our credibility as European Union. So for me, those are some of the things I take back from this discussion. But of course, I think that there's still also a lot of questions that will arise after these very powerful testimonials and words. But for me, I just want to thank all of you for sharing, because like I said, these very concrete examples of what is actually going wrong really help us in the parliament to fight back and to make sure that this cannot be used as an excuse of this extremist and, well, I would say really corporate-driven agenda. So thanks a lot. For me, this was super helpful. But of course, it doesn't need to end there. I think that that's very clear. I think events like today are important, but we need to keep this topic high on the agenda. We need to fight for it, not just in the parliament, but also in the streets. So I'm really counting on all of you to keep up that fighting spirit, because it's really, really necessary.
I will be really short. I mean, Sarah really perfectly summed up what is going on. I will just say, when I was looking, well, the first reactions on the protest in the middle of the summer, late August, for me, the first idea was this is the clear example of unjust green transition. So this is totally contra everything, look, like the Greens have been saying. And this is why I think it's so much important that actually the Greens should really stand behind all of you and strive together with you to mainstream and push this agenda across the parliament. I have to say that the memorandum was signed on July 19, I think. So it was sometimes in between the new and old parliament. So many new MEPs even didn't have any idea what is happening, I guess. So it was some intermediate period. And this is now the work in front of us really to mainstream this position more, this reality more, and try to build majority in this house around to condemn this example of unjust green transition, which will not be easy at all. And let's face this reality as well, because the people of Europe has been elected in a way, the MEPs in a way how they elected it in June. But this is very much important. This should be the high priority, at least for the Green Group. And let's keep on working together, especially on this level of immediate protection of the activists. There are some maybe a little good news that after the last event we organized, at least as far as I heard, he stopped to arrest on the borders. So at least something. It will not last for long, but no, at least you can travel now. Let's see how we can go further. But this is just one small win in a huge battle which is in front of us. So keep on strong, yes.
Thank you. And yeah, we have the chance for 2 questions or 3 question marks, and then short answers. And yeah.
Thank you very much. It's a very interesting conference. I am Stella Veliki. I have studied physics and informatics. I'm a member of the European Physical Society, and I'm coming from Balkan. And I have a short question concerning the project Jadar. Do you have before a risk analysis before you begin this project? Do you make a risk analysis concerning the environment and the people? If the risks are too high, you have a legal basis not to begin with this project. And this risk analysis, the Chinese companies, they don't care about the risk. And you must be very careful with the Chinese companies. If they invest money and you cannot pay it back, they take your natural resources. They are doing a lot of things in the African country. They are all bankrupt now. So my question, this risk analysis, you can make it every month, every year, every 6 months. And if you see that they are too high, you have a legal basis. That's my question.
You want me to answer directly right now? Okay.
Thank you. I'm Jonathan van Herbergen, Director for External Affairs for Europe for Rio Tinto. Well, first of all, I want to express a little bit my disappointment. For me, this is the house of democracy and dialogue, and that we haven't been invited today to be part of the panel or part of this discussion. Nonetheless, thank you for having us here and having the opportunity to speak. I think for us, that's one of the key things that we really want is a proper dialogue around the project. We've reached out to many of you over the last months, last years for engagement, for a fact-based dialogue. In many cases, we never even received a response. We published our draft EIAs in June of this year, also to facilitate the dialogue, to facilitate a discussion on the project. To now, we haven't received any substantive comments on this, on our EIAs. Mr. Malkovich, I'm very sorry to hear about the threats that you get. I think this is totally unacceptable. All I can say is that this has nothing to do with Rio Tinto. On the contrary, we see that also several of my colleagues are very often being threatened. Their children being bullied at school, people being spat on the streets because they work for Rio Tinto. Even today, I saw during my presence here that pictures of me was appearing on Instagram with my LinkedIn and the request to send me a lot of good wishes and etc. I mean, we're all adults. Let's have a fact-based dialogue. Let's talk to each other about this project. We're very keen to engage with you. We want to talk about it based on science, based on facts. That's what we're looking for. I heard a lot of different things about the project today as well. All I can say is that we've been in Serbia now for 20 years. We've engaged with over 4,000 people face-to-face in the region of Loznica. We have 2 visitor centers there who are permanently open. All people can come by, can talk to us, can request information on the project. Our chief executive, just about a month ago, was there together with the president for a 6-hour sit-in on the project with the local population to answer any questions anyone may have on the project. So for us, this is something that we really want to continue. We're very open on this. We've published the draft EIAs. We have different views on the studies, like on the economic impact of the project. Let's discuss this as adults. Let's talk to each other. Let's speak to each other and find a way forward on this project. I think that's all we want to ask for. At the end of the day, we see a lot of misinformation and a lot of disinformation being spread around the project. This isn't helpful. This isn't helping the project at all. The information that we have available is on the project. We are going through the local, to all the legal procedures that are relevant in Serbia. And the guarantee that we give is that we will develop this project according to the highest ESG standards, according to European standards. Why? Because this project is important for Serbia. It's an opportunity for Serbia. It's also an opportunity for Europe. Most of the product that we will sell, we will look at towards either sell it in Serbia or sell it in Europe, according to customers who will also hold us to these European standards. There's regulations like the European battery regulation, etc., battery passport that will help us and that will make sure and give guarantees that we will develop this according to European standards. So again, this is just us. We want to reach out. My colleagues in Serbia are very keen to speak to you, to engage with you. This is an open invitation to do that. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I just want, regarding the draft environmental impact assessment, I want to say that also we were contacted and we got the draft, but only in a very summarized version, in a version that we can't tell anything about the detail, and asking about the full text in English. It was only said that we would provide it after it was approved. So it's very difficult to provide any feedback on a 2-page summary in English. So just to say this on transparency, for us, that's not given. And I want to hand over to my colleagues here.
Okay, thank you very much for the questions. So first, for the risk analysis, well, basically there have been some scientific papers published, but as is often common with these projects, the baseline level pollution is often either like not done by the company or is at best done by individual scientists. Also to offer basically a sort of background, the Serbian state, and including the heads of government, the premiers, are constantly attacking people like scientists, you know, like on Twitter, on social networks. I mean, I agree that's not how adults behave. Basically, I think in these circumstances, we have also a lack of scientists who are willing to do the studies because they will also face threats. And I mean, I personally have not like attacked any employee of Rio Tinto. I just wrote a text in an attempt to actually, you know, come at an adult, you know, like dialogue. And that's how it ended, basically. You know, the risks are involved. And I think a lot of these scientists, at least some are concluding that even the drilling of the holes, for the exploration of the projects has increased the level of boron and lithium in the groundwater. So, there is risks inherent in this, even at this stage of development. But what I wanted to say, because you mentioned China, as you know, Rio Tinto's largest shareholder is Chinalco, a Chinese state company, basically. So I think, usually that's how, we have Franziska Gartner coming in saying, it's not a question of like, if there's going to be a mine, it's kind of a question of, big bad China is going to come, or, a big good Rio Tinto. But the thing is, if you look at what's happening on the ground, there's a continuity between Rio Tinto and China. And not only is Chinalco the largest shareholder, but on the ground, Rio Tinto is actually collaborating with Zijin, a Chinese state company, who is the largest copper exploiter in Serbia and also the largest exporter in Serbia. And they are collaborating on researching different raw materials in the same region, so basically in the south of Serbia. And if we get European taxpayers' money to be associated with the other project, we are going to fail on 3 grounds. So first of all, we are not going to solve climate change, right? Because Serbia's electricity is basically mainly generated by coal. Even if we all drive electric cars, which we won't, less than 1% of the population has the capacity to buy an electric car. Basically, we'll achieve nothing in terms of climate change. Second of all, we will not decouple from China. This is a story. The entire idea behind this project is to decouple from China. And I'm saying, if you look at the ground, that is not happening. It is not about if it's China or the EU. China and the EU are actually conjoined through Rio Tinto. And the company itself, I know the rhetoric, it's saying it was. Basically, I was also at a conference on EV Days. It's called like Festival of Electronic Vehicles in my hometown, north of Belgrade. And basically, there the conclusion was that the problem is not the company, I quote literally a Rio Tinto official, but the Serbian mentality. To me, it sounded like if we are these backwards people from the back of beyond, basically. But if you take a look at what's really happening, it's not that Rio Tinto is bringing Europe to Serbia, bringing the rule of law. Basically, it's bringing also its Chinese connections. And if you want to decouple from China, well, it ain't gonna happen, because it's not happening, because there's shareholders involved. There's actually exploitation and exploration being involved along with Chinese companies. And this is a global economic process, because the green transition in itself has been done by outsourcing production into Southeast Europe, into the Balkans and into Serbia. This is what I wanted to say regarding China. And also, I can even connect, if anyone wants, I know a lot of my researchers, friends, and journalists are looking into actually Chinese companies getting European public procurement money. And I think if this project is associated with the strategic partnership by the European Union, then you will have to actually explain to your own political constituencies within the countries that, the taxpayers are coming from, why they are supporting a violent project. I mean, I'm not saying that Rio Tinto is connected to the threats. I just want to be clear on that. But the threats did mention the name Rio Tinto several times. So somebody is actually threatening scientists in the name of Rio Tinto, even if you don't have any association with it. I myself have reported this to the police, to the United Nations, and we are still investigating, because the police is doing nothing, just as the messages have said. And I think if there's a possibility, even if it's not your own responsibility, but if this project is actually supported, even, as I said, despite the best intentions of Rio Tinto, I don't doubt that actually there are some good people in Rio Tinto, but even despite these intentions, if this is actually supported, European politicians will have to answer why they are being supported a violent project that is connected to kidnappings, threats. I had a friend who was mentioned, basically she's in the 5th month now of her pregnancy. Her home was raided basically by the anti-terrorist units because she was in administration of a Facebook group called Activism. If this is something that we want to support, basically that's going to jeopardize the green transition and use taxpayers' money for a basically project that is not going to help climate change, it's not decoupled from China, and it's going to endanger the green transition. And after the mine is gone, after the 40 years, if the mine is gone, it's a very short lifespan for a mine, it will endanger the Serbian concept of development, because once you take out the mine, then what else? No question, no answer. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I will try to answer both questions from the book. Not before I shout out to our activists who are currently holding protests in Serbia. We have a reason to be worried for them. The need for environmental protection has been ignored. This is the official statement of the Serbian Academy of Sciences. So regarding the researchers who are to say, is it safe or is it not safe to dig? They have not been conducted in a proper way. When it comes to the environmental impact, it is of utmost importance to get as accurate as possible assessments of the effects, not only on the immediate vicinity of the proposed mine, but also in the surrounding territories. So, has the Jadar project been transparently presented to the Serbian public, and is it in the public interest beneficial of the Republic of Serbia? The Jadar project has not been realized transparently and in accordance with the existing norms, procedures, and standards concerning the availability of critical information to the general public and public's participation in the process of planning and decision-making. The special purpose zoning plan for exploration and processing of the mineral jadarite, Project Jadar, approved by the government of Serbia March 2020, was the first publicly available document providing at least a partial insight into the real scope and possible consequences of the implementation of the Jadar project. It was only after the Sasa conference, the Jadar project, what is known, held in May 2021, when the representatives of the investor disclosed a fraction of exploration results, analysis, and proposed solutions. And just to conclude this, what Rio Tinto calls the study is not an actual study by all the norms that study should have. So, gentlemen, I'm sorry you're left with nothing, and we're here for a reason too.
Yeah. Thank you for your intervention. I'm glad that representatives or Rio Tinto are here. I'm glad that the company changed the policy, because last year I was supposed to be part of a panel with your CEO in Belgrade and with the Minister of Energy, and 3 days before panel they canceled participation. I don't know whether it was because of me or not, but I think that you should communicate with the public long before you decided to do so. Regarding your suggest that we talk with the facts, I fully agree with you. Let's talk with the facts. The fact is that the environmental impact assessment study comes after the scoping study, as you know. You just finished the scoping procedure. So environmental impact assessment study is coming afterwards, which means that the document you mentioned as environmental impact assessment study is not environmental impact assessment study. And the reason why it's not environmental impact assessment study is because it was not and it could not be in the official procedure, because these previous phases are not concluded. What you did was that you announced this document, and this is true, you called different stakeholders, including my organization, to take part of it. In the document, which was not signed by the people who prepared it, and the document which includes specific disclaimer that nothing mentioned within it should be taken as 100% accurate, meaning that you could write down anything without obligation to comply with it. In that situation and in that circumstances, we found it that we are not, we should not wasting time on talking about something which is not obligatory to anybody and is used exclusively to show that transparency and of the procedure and your new politics of your company towards the citizens, towards expert community and everybody. But we will, of course, participate when the official document is announced, according with our laws and according with official procedure. And to conclude with this, you mentioned the discussion of the president and your CEO with the citizens of Loznica. We know how our president discusses with the citizens. And I will share this with other people here who doesn't know. Even the fly cannot come into the room without previously know exactly the question that the fly would ask to our president or to his guests. So when you said there was 6 hours talk, this is true. He likes to talk a lot, and he likes to explain to us all kind of things, but in strictly controlled conditions. So we know how these talks are handled, and this is not, I'm afraid, good argument to persuade the public in Serbia on the good intention of the company. Thank you.
So handing over to Diego for the closing words of the day. We've already overdrawn it a little bit, giving you to summarize the day today.
Yes, thank you very much. And thank you very much for all of our guests coming here today, and also for all of you joining us, and those online as well. I'll keep it very, very brief because we are technically over time, and there's also possibility to mingle and exchange later on. One of the things that I wanted to mention that a lot of the discussion was bringing about was on the demand side issue. And a lot of this discussion is at the moment being thought about as only an environmental issue. Here's 2 things that I want to mention. One, before I get into the demand, one is that the EU at the moment is in the historical process of modern history, is dealing with a really, really particular moment in time, what the European Union means in terms of geopolitical issues currently happening, right? When we tie the situation, decoupling from China, not being subservient to the United States, right? What does the EU want to do? It's trying to develop a new development model for the Global South. I'm coming from the Global South, so this particularly pertains me. One of the issues that it wants to talk about is about to do win-win relationships, right? When value added within the strategic partnerships, right? When we look at Serbia, Serbia could be thought of as a Global South within Europe, right? It is within the periphery and is being exploited for its resources, its people, right, as well, for the benefit of the European Union. But it doesn't have to be this way. And it doesn't have to be this way. And the reason why I say that is because if we actually really, truly care about security of supply, if we truly care about human rights, if we truly care about the environmental pollution and conservation of the environment, we have to look into demand-side solutions as a huge lever to reduce the demand, to avoid new Serbias, to avoid new Greenlands, right? To avoid new deep sea mining, to avoid new Barrosos in Portugal, to avoid mining extraction in the Amazon. The EU consumes 20 to 25% of the raw materials around the world, while we make 6% of the world's population. And I really mean this. Right now, we're getting into a situation which our car industry is really having to, of course, being impacted by energy prices, being impacted by the fast rise of EVs over there in China, right? And what's happening is we don't have a good industrial policy which actually addresses how do we think systematically on actually creating an industrial policy that can reduce human rights impacts. We're just trying to grow everything we can. In a way, anxious Europe is trying to maintain its grip on the world stage, right? In any way it can, including with the exploitation of the periphery in the Global South. But it doesn't have to be this way. And the way I say this, I really mean this, urban design has to play a key role here. Rail infrastructure has to play a key role here, right? And the way we do that is by creating an industrial policy that actually emphasizes on rail transport, emphasizes on good urban infrastructure, emphasizes on good eco-design and repairing of our materials. 60% of the critical raw materials demand is coming from the private vehicle sector. There is your low-hanging fruit. Benchmark Minerals Intelligence, for example, suggests that 386 mines will be needed by 2030 to meet the needs of the world towards the energy transition, right? That's only energy transition. It's not assessing military, it's not assessing ICTs, it's not assessing data and AI, right? Which also need tremendous amount of minerals. Once they count in recycling in there, they put 345 mines will be needed. If they were to implement some demand-side measures, how many more mines would be not needed anymore? Well, we don't know because that data is not there. And one of the things that is really missing within our models is they're all fully focused on increase of demand only. They never look at how demand can be actively decreased in our models. The IPCC provides this. They have different model scenarios where it actually looks at the level of ambition versus the level of decrease of greenhouse gas emissions, right? We don't do that for raw materials. We only have exponential increase. And the materials that, and the reports that are focused on reducing are only on the universities, are only on NGOs as well providing this information. They're not done on an institutional level. So I encourage the Parliament, I encourage the Commission to assess these models to focus specifically on demand-side solutions. Well, for example, rail could have a huge impact in this, and we avoid new Serbias, like I mentioned, we avoid mining in the deep sea, and we avoid new Greenlands, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe the last thing I'll mention this, because this is really important on the point of what is the point? Somebody mentioned, I can't remember who it was, but they mentioned, what is the point of the transition if it's going to sacrifice people? And again, I mentioned, this is something that Alexander mentioned. I keep saying this, it doesn't have to be this way. It is only being done this way because there is the need again and again to only focus on the new technologies, only focus on what's hot and new at the moment, and not necessarily focus on systemic thinking where human rights, environmental protection can coincide as well with greater societal well-being. Again, I'll leave this here. It doesn't have to be this way. It's only chosen by that, like this, by, well, forces like this, like maybe Rio Tinto could later make a comment on this. I would like to speak with you as well after this, but I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for everyone for joining us today in this talk. Again, at the European Environmental Bureau, at the Raw Materials Coalition, with Higher Impulse Foundation, Friends of the Earth Europe, and all our colleagues here, we will continue to fight for environmental justice. We will continue to bring about these stories. It's not just Serbia in Bosnia, it's also North Macedonia, it's also Montenegro, it's also Greenland, it's also Sweden, Norway, Finland. It's happening everywhere. And the reason how we reduce these impacts is by thinking systematically. So thank you very much for joining us today. And yeah, welcome to the new discussions ahead. Thank you. Thank you, brother. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
And ja, je kan het lekker processen. What I see, since of course, yeah. Yeah, that's great. No, it's really right. And I know that you're fine. You've got a little bit. Oh,
There's so many to pick from.
You're saying yeah, but it's still gonna be.
Yeah, we need with Bible Foundation.
Thank you so much.
I like this schedule. It's excellent. Thank you. It's like Yeah, I was just, sorry.